The July 11th board work session is now in order. Paul, roll call, please.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
Ms. Wright?
Here.
Mr. Trent?
Here.
Ms. Campbell?
Here.
Ms. Jenkins?
Here.
Just so everybody knows, Ms. Jenkins is online, and she's at about a 5-second delay, so if we can appropriately give her the opportunity when we speak to, you know what I mean, for that. And the next is can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I can't hear anything.
We're doing the pledge. Okay, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Jenkins, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Okay, the first topic is Board Policy 8600, Transportation. Dr. Rendell.
This is a public hearing, so you need to open it up for public hearing to the public.
Okay, we're opening it up for the public hearing for the public.
Yes, so does any member of the public wish to comment about 8600?
Does any member wish to speak about this policy?
Oh no, I'd rather go home and be the first.
Where's the timer? I should go under 3.
I got it
if
right
that
here.
helps.
I'll tell you when you got 30 seconds left.
All right, perfect. Let me know when you're ready.
Go.
Awesome. I was reading through the proposed changes to the transportation policy, and I have a significant concern about the addition of number 16. It states, quote, "In cases where a student with physical disabilities is unable to leave the area of a student stop without assistance, the bus driver operator shall not assume responsibility for such assistance except in an emergency that threatens the safety of such student or students." Now, I do understand that this line comes from Neola, but I also understand from being in your policy meetings that you don't always agree with Neola. So I'm asking for clarification on what that looks like, because what I envision it looks like could lead to a student panicking, experiencing trauma, and or being left in an unsafe environment once the bus driver leaves in that student's stop point. I fully understand that bus drivers only have X amount of time to go from stop to stop. However, if this means exactly how it sounds like it means, which is potentially leaving a helpless student on the side of the road, then we should have some system where the bus driver reports this to dispatch, or there's communication with the student's administration so some check can be done to ensure safety. We don't harp much on stranger danger anymore, but this could put our students at risk of kidnapping or harm. I know we think in terms of every student seemingly having a cell phone these days, but that just isn't the case, especially in our elementary schools. But also, our students aren't going to think rationally if they're experiencing anxiety or panic. So even a student with a phone may not be able to use the tool to actually protect themselves. I want to be wrong in my interpretation of this section because it comes across not just as ableist, but also unnecessarily cruel. From my perspective, it just looks like another example of the board potentially approving a policy that's written poorly and when implemented actually harms our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Curvin. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to this policy? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Just a public hearing.
I don't have one. They didn't. It's off. So, anyways, go ahead, Dr. Rendell.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. We will, am I on?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think so.
We will take that input into consideration. This is policy language, and then there's implementation, so administrative procedures. So we already do have administrative procedures about what a bus driver is supposed to do in a situation like that. So we'll review that and make sure we're not going to leave a student in a vulnerable position on the side of the road or anything like that.
I'm wondering, Dr. Rendell, if, make sure I'm on, if that language doesn't come directly out of statute, so can we get that clarified before our next meeting? That would be great.
Yeah, we'll check and make sure that if it's amendable, then we'll amend it to something that's a little more specific. And so we won't leave a student on the side of the road.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So, any other questions on the board transportation? Paul, I'm going to ask you, the next topic is going to be the board policy 0118 through 0172. Do we need to allow an individual from here to speak on each one of them?
No, this is the first work session stop for the board discussion of the proposed changes.
And so, public discussion, no. Do you need me to give a motion on each one, or do you
No,
just
no
need me to
motion
say?
on
That's
any
what
of
I
them,
thought.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Thank you. So the next topic is board policies, bylaws 0118 through 0172. Does any member wish to discuss any of those policies? Yes. We're not taking public comment, Ms. Gervin. Thank you.
our first chance.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gervin. Just laid that out. So,
It wasn't clear.
yep, Ms. Campbell, you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I had the same confusion because I thought because it was a public hearing, this was going to be our first public hearing, but this is actually our first chance to look at it work session. So, board, if I was going through, I think there's some changes we might want to consider that maybe weren't exactly our intentions, but might not have been super clear. So I'm just gonna go through. I don't know if you want to go through any. I mean.
No, start
Yeah,
at 0018.
118. 118 is the first one and was my first concern. I actually agree with several, when I was looking through this myself, with several people mentioned today about why take the part about the Constitution out. I don't know why Neola didn't list that because we were created by the Constitution and not necessarily Florida statute. And yeah, they're a little bit of a synonym, but I think would be an easy fix to put it back in. And then, but as far as the desires to me, to address some things that people said this morning, I don't see that as a conflict because we as a board have an obligation to always be looking for the educational needs of our students. But this, to me, this language in this item B is more about how we do our jobs because we have statutory requirements and then we have things that the community wants us to do, but we can't always do what all the members of the community want us to do. Quite frequently, the desires of the community conflict with one another. So clearly, we can't make everybody happy. So to me, this is just the way of saying we can't make everybody happy. So when we're going to do the best we can, we are the elected authority to make those decisions. So I don't have a problem with that. But I would like to put Constitution back into this one.
I too am in favor of adding the Constitution for the state of Florida.
I don't think, flip yours towards you.
It's not on. Okay. I too am in favor. I'm not sure why that was struck out. I guess because Neola's recommendation was that. I have an issue with the word desires as well, and that's been brought up in public comment. Can it be both? Can we have needs and desires? Does it have to be one or the other?
It's your policy.
All right. So, I mean, I would say I think it's good to cover both because we're trying to achieve both. We're not going to be able to do that 100% of the time, but the needs obviously are
So you want needs / desires or?
Or needs and.
and desires.
Okay.
Should it be educational need? I mean, I guess we could put both of them back in there. Yeah, we probably should educational needs because we're not meeting like all your other
Right.
needs. So that's fine. I'm good with that. Everybody good with that?
I'm okay with all of those changes. Are you okay with that?
Yep.
Ms. Jenkins, I'm not sure if you heard, but they're working on a couple of changes. Did you hear them, and are you okay with them?
Yeah, I can hear you guys perfectly fine. And yes, I'm fine with those changes.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. I think you have clear direction.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Let me just
Okay.
get them and then we hear you guys.
Sure.
All right, does anybody else have any of the other questions to any of the other policies that we're going over today?
Oh, yeah. I got a list. I was just trying to, rather than do the whole list. No, you're not taking a picture of my notes. My notes are not public record, much less your record.
We'll just run through it this way. How about we
Thank
do
you.
this?
I'm
Does anybody have a question
here.
about board policy
Just kidding.
0121, responsibilities and authority of the board?
Yeah, I'm actually, I don't have something on every single one, but I have several.
figure if we
So
just do it
yeah,
this way.
121, when we talked about this, there was one member of the board who wanted us just to list all of it. I just want to go back on this one, and several of these I have the same thing. Is this what we really wanted? Did we really want then for the whole entire section of the Florida statute, Constitution and Florida statutes on school board authority listed in this policy so that now it's several pages long and will have to be revised every time the legislature touches these sections? So is this really what we wanted? So that's my question on this, and it'll be the same question when we get to some of these other items.
I would say I was the person that wanted to make that happen initially, and I would say that if they are, that we would want to refresh ourselves on each time that it happens, and that was the reason. Many of the other policies that we have, I was not, I did not want to put them on it, but what happens is many times the policies change behind there, and we don't actually know them, we don't talk about them, we don't bring them up. And I think that that's the reason, if you put them all in there, that it not only tells you when it needs to be changed, but it's also a really good reminder for people who are looking out there to what our roles and responsibilities are, including new members and everything else. So that's the reason I put it there. I'm in favor of keeping it. If there's any other discussion.
I too am in favor of keeping